Hello everybody and welcome to The Honest Review. My name is Forrest Stevens and I'm your host. Today we're going to be talking about this guy right here, the Jackery Explorer 240. And what the 240 stands for, as much as it's just a model name, it also means something. It means that this capacity is 240 watt hours. Now what that technically means is that if this is at full capacity, you could draw 240 watts for 1 hour. Or you could draw 1 watt for 240 hours. Now it's a little bit different than a lot of lead acid batteries, which will go by amp hours, which essentially you get watts by timesing the amps and your voltage together. So you can calculate a watt hour of a lead acid battery pretty quickly. Now I've used this for months now, and I think this thing is really, really awesome for a couple different reasons. As you can tell, I'm in a minivan right now. This is my minivan build, and this has kind of been my filmmaking go-to. I ended up bringing this with me for a couple different filmmaking trips in the van, and also a filmmaking trip on a sailboat, which ended up being really, really handy because we could charge as the engine ran in the sailboat. You can charge through 12 volt directly into the input from a cigarette lighter plug, and you could charge this up at 40 watts. That would take quite a while to charge to full capacity, but you charge it for a few hours and then you can run things off at night from this. A few different features this has built in is it has 2 USB ports, both at 5 volt, and then it has a AC inverter. So what that does is it takes the power from the lithium battery in here and turns it into 110 volts and at a max of 200 watts. So you're going to want to check the watts of whatever type of appliance or whatever type of thing that you're trying to run off of this. Now I did run a magic bullet off of this, which goes upwards of 350 watts at times, because this has a display which I was able to see off of it, but I would just pulse it. I would keep pulsing it, and I wouldn't recommend doing that because you're going over the max watts that this says it can handle, but it did handle it. So I was lucky that there was nothing breaking at that point. So there's 3 different things you can run off of this, and there's 3 different buttons that give you power to those sections of the Jackery. The first one, if you hit these buttons, there's green indicator lights that come on for each part, and there's a blue indicator light when you have an input that is actually giving it charge. The output for the AC inverter is 5 watts, so as soon as you hit this, it's going to start drawing 5 watts out of the lithium battery to transform the 12 volts into 110. So it takes power to run this guy. The display is super, super useful because you'll finally get accurate readings of whatever you're trying to charge, and you can kind of gauge, okay, if you're going long distance, if you're off the grid, your batteries for your camera might only take 8 watts, but your laptop might take 40 to 110 watts. So you can only use your laptop for a couple hours, and you could charge your batteries for like a week or longer. This thing has come in handy when I've had a power outage at my house. I can plug in some twinkle lights in here and light up an entire room. We can run our laptop and watch a movie, all sorts of stuff. So this entire van is pretty much run solely from this Jackery, and the reason why is because you can charge this thing 3 different ways. You can charge it through an AC outlet, plug it into a wall. You can charge it from a cigarette lighter, so you can plug it into your van, and while your alternator's running or while your motor's on, you could charge this, which is super, super convenient for low-tech, small van builds. And then you can also charge it directly from a solar panel, which I don't have, but there's different types of solar panels that will allow you to plug directly in and take advantage of some renewable. Some of the downsides of this, one of the downsides is the design, I think. Just this handle, it comes up a couple inches, and I know there's a Goal Zero, which this is a competitor of. The Goal Zero has a handle that inlays and pops out. And the amount of times that you really need to use this handle is just for transport. Otherwise it's in the way, and something that would otherwise only take up this much space is now taking up this much space. It might have to be in a different cabinet in your van or your build or wherever this is going. So that's a little bit inconvenient. There's a fan that comes on when it starts cooling, which is just kind of caught me by surprise, and uses a little bit of battery, but that's kind of what happens when you're inverting a lot of power, is there's heat generation. So it's not really a downside, it's just something that happens. My one USB plug, after months of having this, I've had this since January, it only works for certain devices, and I'm not really sure why. It'll charge my friend's iPhone, but it won't charge anything else. But the top one still works. The 200 watts is a limitation. It's only going to allow you to, I tried to use a magic bullet, and that was the most that you could use off this thing. Other appliances, you're just not going to be able to run off this, but a laptop is probably the most that you're going to use for this. Besides that, honestly, there's no real downsides. I mean, obviously there's a limitation of how much power you can get from this. It's only 240 watt hours, but it's going to last you quite a while. And I'm going to show you guys now how my entire van build is actually rigged up to support this thing as its main power source. So here I have a little switch and a voltage indicator, which kind of delays, but it comes on eventually. My shutter speed is too high for that, but you can see it's 12.8 volts right now. And that indicates that my lights are on, and this directly goes off of my van battery. So I'm going to turn that off. Now I've designed it to run off of this thing as well. So in this build, in these light build, I have added in a cigarette lighter plug and a switch, and it's right here. So here it is. Now, what you would do is you take your Jackery, you hit this button, so you turn this part on, and you plug this in. Then I would flick this switch, and boom, we have power. And it's taking, let me see if I can see that. And we're drawing about 5 watts right now from this. And we're getting fully lit up. And then there's also a voltage indicator. This actually stops right here at this switch. It doesn't go back. But right now the voltage indicator is 13.1. So you're actually getting above 12 on this, and you get a nice steady stream of power. So that's how I power this van off of that. I mean, my power requirements for this is pretty small. I just have my lights, and then I use the Jackery as well for my laptop and charging any electronics. So thank you guys for watching. There's a link below if you guys want to check out more on the Jackery, or if you want to purchase it from Amazon. And I'll see you guys on the next episode of The Honest Review.